Think you may be an alcoholic? Know someone that you may be worried about having an addiction problem? Perhaps even the friend of a friend. Guys, this is Mike with Grouch and the Brainstorm, and maybe you're like me and have made it to the point of surrender only to find that getting sober has more questions than it has answers. This podcast was created with you in mind. The Grouch and the Brainstorm title comes from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it simply means that we're just the opposite. Anger and worry can be poison, and we just would rather leave the drama to those who don't mind it. We don't have an opinion or advice. We have combined experience of 33 years that we use as a tool to help those who are new possibly get some answers before they get frustrated and leave. Our show has a combination of comedy and tragedy with just the right chemistry to keep you company. Totally free and there for you anytime you want to listen. We're available on most platforms and online at grouchandbrainstorm.com. We invite you to listen, call, email, text, or leave us a voicemail if there's ever a topic you would like to hear about. We touch on a lot of topics, and here recently we've started having guest speakers from all over the country. From Jill, Matt, and me, we hope you have a happy holiday season and a happy new year. None of us have the ability to get anyone sober. What we do have is possibly the ability to help you live sober. So listen to these episodes if you like, and hopefully you'll enjoy it. And as a matter of fact, I think one's coming right now. Welcome back. Episode 93.
Hey,
At 93, the Grouch.
That was a good year, too.
That was a good year. And
God bless.
today, guys, we have another phone interview, and this one is with Lee from California.
California.
And I can't remember the name. I never remember the name, but it's spelled O-J...
AI.
O-J-A-I.
I think he says it pronounces it Ohio.
Ohio.
Yeah.
Kind of like Ohio, but
Yes.
not quite in Ohio.
Yes.
It's on the West Coast.
I've seen pictures. It's definitely not Ohio.
That's definitely
where he lives.
Definitely not Ohio. But anyway, so we're going to interview Lee. How about it, guys?
Let's do it.
Let's do
Let's
it.
do it.
You're
Well,
awesome.
Lee, I'm Mike. And
Hey, I'm
Mike,
Jill.
Pleasure to meet you.
And you know
Jill,
me,
what's
I'm
up?
Matt. Yep.
Hey,
Matt.
how's it going, man?
This is so cool.
I was
feel
showing
like
him a
I feel like
picture.
I know you guys.
I was showing him a picture of your bike ride this morning around the mountain. I was showing Jill.
Yeah,
What
I'm
a-
incredibly jealous. That's the beautiful scenery.
It is spectacular. I was riding next to a gal that is a real crackerjack rider, and we are looking out, and the trail kind of goes along the top of this mountain. It just kind of threads along, and we're looking out to our right, and the ocean was out there with all the Channel Islands.
wow.
And I said, we are the richest people on the planet right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
She said, yes, we are.
Where are you located, Lee?
I live in Ojai, which is south of Santa Barbara, north of or east of Ventura. It's up in the mountains on the central coast. It's about
Wineries.
2 hours from LA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's some wineries. Actually, there's a vineyard on the property where I live. And I'm in
Nice.
the wine business.
Wow,
So
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
You guys will
California.
hear all about that.
Why don't you just start kind of tell us from the beginning, and we'll listen in and butt in and ask questions.
Yeah, go ahead. Start
is
us
perfect.
off there, Lee.
Well, let's see. Born in California. I was raised in an alcoholic family. But the person in my family that I'm not going to out just because we haven't talked about this, she, we went to a unit, and I'll never forget as a teenager going through it. And they had this movie they showed us that said, it was called It'll Never Happen to Me. And I said, oh, yeah, never going to happen to me. And I remember being kind of cocky about it. And I graduated high school in 1981. So I was kind of raised in that whole Animal House era. So, drinking was part of the deal, and it was kind of the social norm. I kind of just became part of the party crowd. There were no drugs. I mean, I had friends that did drugs and stuff, but I was always just a drinker. I went to college in San Diego. I was a bicycle racer. I discovered bicycle racing after I graduated from high school and became a bicycle racer, moved down to San Diego to race collegiate and USCF racing.
Wow.
And so that kind of limited my, I was a real limited focus. So I was not a very good student because I spent all my time riding my bike. But about halfway through my college career, my brother came down to live with me, and we started working in a restaurant together. And the restaurant culture was a company called Chart House. And the culture of the company was all about athletics. And so we just lived that lifestyle. We rode bikes, we worked at night and went to school during the day. And that was what I did for, a number of years. I didn't took me forever to get through school because my racing season would preclude me from taking classes. And I was in the restaurant industry, and we partied and drank and stuff, but I was never, I mean, I loved it, but it got in the way of me doing my stuff. So I never, got too far down into it and never got that into the party scene. When I graduated, went through a few different jobs, and eventually ended up in the wine industry. While I was in the wine industry, worked for a number of years as a rep, and I was always around it. And I loved, I was what they would call, a heavy drinker, and maybe sometimes make an ass out of myself. But in that industry, that's just street cred.
Yeah.
Par for the course.
That's like, that's what people do. I remember a guy telling me one time, I feel like I'm walking around about .08 all the time, and I was like, man, I'm in the right industry, And then, and there were struggles and there were signs, but it was never that big of a deal. And then I eventually, my wife and I had an opportunity to move up in the world, and I was still, involved in athletics. I was coaching all my kids' teams. I was doing all that stuff. I have 3 kids. There was an opportunity to take a job that I knew would change my life as far as it changed my life financially, but it would also limit everything else I did in my life that was important to me. And when I made that decision, I literally flipped the switch. I heard an interview with a guy one time in a sober broadcast that said, when you feel like you've sold out, it accelerates your addiction for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And man, as soon as I took that job, and I was like I always called myself a middle shot. I wasn't a big shot, but I moved up in the world running a substantial part of the Central Coast here. Alcoholism put its arm around me, and it took me down this alleyway, and I thought it was my friend, and then it just proceeded to beat the hell out of me.
Wow.
It ragdolled me, man. I mean, it took about 3 years for me to go from doing mountain bike races and doing all those things to just be a teary-eyed, wet-brained, fat slob. It was horrible. It was just, there's too many stories to go on and on about my behavior was never outlandish, but I was embarrassing,
Sure.
And I was sad. And I remember, I had a company car, but I wouldn't drive it. I would take the train everywhere because that way I wouldn't have to worry about getting, I was terrified of getting a DUI. So I would save myself from that by taking the train. And everybody knew it, but I'd take the ribbing about it because, that kept me out of trouble and kept the money coming in, kept my job. And it got rougher and rougher and sadder and sadder. My health started to deteriorate. There were signs where I would be, I got to the point where I could, a lot of our meetings will start at 7 a.m. for work. And I couldn't function. I couldn't go to the meeting unless I'd wake up a couple hours before the meeting in my hotel room, drink in the room, and then go to the meeting site and then hope they would serve us wine at the meeting before I started shaking again.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was getting that bad where my health was really starting to go and I couldn't function. I remember it, like some of my saddest moments were, I had these really good suits that I had made. I remember sitting in a hotel room with a cheap bottle of wine in this really expensive suit at 6 a.m. trying to get through without, dry heaving a bottle of wine down so I wouldn't make an ass out of myself walking into the meeting and not be able to hold a pen or open my computer up.
You had the physical.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was just an ongoing battle where I was circling the drain and I knew it, and I kept kind of bargaining about, I used to literally talk to alcohol and say, look, man, can we just make a deal here? I'll keep you happy. You let me function.
Man.
Wow.
And you know what? And the deal didn't work out in my favor. It got worse and worse. Yeah.
Alcohol's undefeated,
You know what? It is a vicious bastard,
Mm-hmm.
The thing was I got really lucky and what happened was I was at a function that I had to go to in one of the places it's a resort that I cover as part of my territory. And my wife drove me up there. It's a 6-hour drive. And she drove me up there because she knew I was not going to, and she was at her end. My kids were done with me. It was getting bad. And I went to this function and I'm staggering around this function. And this is a $3 billion company, okay? My boss was there. My boss's boss's boss was there. The CFO of the company was there. And I fell. And I couldn't get up. And they called the ambulance and they called and all that.
Oh, God.
I was super embarrassed. And yeah. It was the whole thing, right? So they carried me back to my hotel room. And my wife said, you got to straighten this out or this is it. And my boss came to my room at 7 a.m. and said, I can't use you. And I said, you know, I'm going to give you, we have a program in the company. I'm going to put you in that program. This is your last chance. And then on the 6-hour drive home, my wife said, you know, I love you. You're an awesome dude, but this is your last chance. We are, you know, I can't put up with it. I told you I put up with your drinking until I couldn't put up with it, and you're done. So I'll never forget. Everybody would think that was their rock bottom, but my rock bottom was driving home, and I was starting to really get the shakes, and I was starting to really DT. And I remember the most pathetic thing, and I can't believe I'm going to say this where other people are going to hear it, but I literally couldn't get out of the car at a rest stop to go pee. I was like, I'm like, am I just going to pee myself right here? And I didn't, but I could have. I couldn't even get out of the car. And that is, I went to my first meeting that night and got through that. Don't remember much about it. My company had a program where I had a visitation with a lady 3 times. It was nice they did that. That didn't really do it. I went to go see a shrink, and he was like, the guy was actually kind of a jerk to me. He's like, so what's your problem? And I'm like, I drink too much. And he goes, well, what are you doing? He's like, your blood pressure is through the roof. I just took your blood pressure. And I'm like, because I'm drinking like 10 cups of coffee a day, buddy. I'm trying not to drink. Can you help me? And he was, well, that's not going to work. So I kept going to meetings. And everything I'd ever done successfully in my life was because I just followed the people that were good at whatever I was doing, was cycling, you know, whatever. And when I worked in the restaurant, whoever the best was in the restaurant, I followed that person around, did what they did. So I started going to meetings, and I just lived it. I mean, I went whole hog AA, and man, they really saved me. I mean, you know, put their arms around me and said, welcome. And I mean, I got deeply involved, and I was going, you know, I used to put a hash mark on my book, on the first, I bought a big book the first night. Yeah. And I put a hash mark in every day I made sober. And I just kept collecting those days like a person, you know, and it was, you know, the first month or 2 was really hard. But I was so glad to have the chance to put my problems behind me that I just kind of lived on that pink cloud and just kind of did that thing. And I was, you know, inundating myself in the program. And that was really good, except there was a little bit of a storm cloud for me. I went to a meeting one night, and I was getting kind of frustrated with, I wanted it to be happy joy all the time. And I was having a hard time dealing with kind of the reality. And I went to this meeting, and they called it a beginner meeting. But everybody that went there, I live in a real small town. There's only 8,000 people. And the beginner meeting was actually a bunch of guys that had been sober like 30 years. And they were the guys that had been around forever, and all they did was argue and yell. And it was horrible. And I got my 3-month shift, and I was like, yeah. And then these guys are having some big fight about, I don't know, whatever they're going to read first or whatever. And I was so upset. I came home and I couldn't sleep. And I told my wife, I said, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. And I mean, I'm tearing up right now just even telling the story, because I thought, I'm done. You know, I'm going to die in an alley somewhere, because I don't know what I'm going to do. And I was up all night, and I wrote down to myself, and I'm not a journaling kind of guy, but I wrote down all these notes about how I don't want to do it like that. If I'm going to be sober, I want to do it with joy. You know, and everybody's telling me you have to do it like this. You have to give yourself, you know, about being humble, and, you know, what got you there, you know, look what happened to you. So live this life. But I've been looking at some of these people, and I'm like, I don't want to live like that. And I was really troubled. And I got in my car the next morning to go to work. And as I was backing up, I looked over my shoulder, and all of a sudden, this feeling of, I don't know how old you guys are, but did anybody ever have solar cane sprayed on you by your mom when you got sunburned when you were a kid?
I'm 51. I have, yes.
Okay.
I actually have some at the house. Just
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Mike and Jill are real old. I'm not, but just for the record.
Oh my God.
I'm
Watch
playing.
it, child. But literally this feeling came over me and said, literally, like, not a voice, but just this feeling of, you don't have to drink. And I'm like, huh? You don't have to drink. And all of a sudden I understood that you don't have to drink. There's a life without it. and it was like solar cane being sprayed on my soul. And I call that my God moment, and when I talk about God, people have all their different versions of it in this program, whatever. But for me, there's something there that works, that reached out and grabbed me and saved me right then. I get goosebumps just talking about it. And it really, really happened for me. And I wish I could give someone a script or a menu or something, how to get to that moment in your life, because it truly saved me. And I've never looked back. I never had I've had a lot of problems in my life since then, but I haven't had a troubled moment about alcohol. I was worried about what I was going to do for a living the rest of my life, working in the wine business. And I was worried. I kept saying, I don't know how I'm going to thread this needle, but that's never been a problem. And it's been, 6 years now. My sober date's 11/27/18. Just had my 6th anniversary.
Awesome.
And,
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Thanksgiving week, right? Last week.
Oh, and that was a hell of a Thanksgiving week. That's 6 years ago. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
But
Can imagine.
my family's happy to bring it up from time to time.
I bet.
Yeah. But no, that moment really, really, I never looked back. And that was a truly, that was a gift. And I've tried to live up to that gift ever since then,
So did you feel that was that moment with the old timers in there, that it was just kind of discouraging to you to see the future and go, oh, I'm not going to be like this in 30 years? Or is that kind of what?
I was hoping, because I was still pink clouding it, and it really popped my balloon that there's a reality here. And I was like, it came to me, I don't want to do it like that. And that, you've seen, by my Instagram and stuff, I'm really into working out. I'm really into fitness. And people always say to me, oh my gosh, I can't believe you do all that workout stuff. I can't believe you do all that stuff in your bike, blah, blah, blah. They're all, you have so much discipline. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, discipline? Discipline? If it was about discipline, I'd be drunk right now. It's not about that at all. I do it with joy. And that is that is for me what makes it work, is I do it with joy. It's a privilege to be sober. It's a privilege to work out. It's a privilege to have a family. It's a privilege to be healthy. It's a privilege to have my relationship with my higher power. Those are all the things that really make me tick. And I don't want to sound like I'm bagging on the old timers, because they saved me. I couldn't do it like that. I don't have it in my makeup to be that aggressive and that wound up about stuff. I have to do it with joy or, positivity, or it just doesn't work for me.
Sure.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it makes perfectly good sense.
I was at a meeting one time, and I was still fairly new. And I was telling this guy, hey man, I heard this thing today. And he's like, well, you probably heard it before about how when you're in a meeting, alcoholism's outside doing push-ups, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah. And he goes, well, I'm in here, man. I'm doing MMA. I'm getting lessons. I'm going to go out and I'm going to kick alcohol's ass. And this guy's like 30 years sober. And I'm like, I still remember being the rag doll and, alcoholism having me by the scruff of the neck and just dragging me through broken glass. Right. And I told him, I just kind of laughed. And, when I was in high school, I'm real short. I'm 5'5". And whenever there was a fight in high school, of course, everybody wants to pick on the little guy, right? Mm-hmm. And I used to hang around this guy who was this big, huge dude, Joey. And he was my best friend. And we were at a party one time, and I was talking to this girl, and this guy came up, and he wanted to have a fight because I was talking to his girl. And I just started laughing at him. And he goes, why are you laughing? I'm about to kick your ass. And I said, because Joey's right behind you. Yeah. And for me, Joey is God. That's it for me. My higher power, that alcoholism can talk to God as far as I'm concerned.
Sure.
Talk to my higher power. I know what happened to me. I don't stand a chance, and
that healthy fear is really good. That healthy respect.
It is a healthy fear. It is. I absolutely don't ever want to step in that ring again, because I know where it'll go, and that acceptance is a huge thing. I think that is kind of one of the cornerstones of what works from my experience. Is, I know I'm pretty humbled by it. I know what happened, and I remember it every day when I pray at night. I'm like, hey, I remember. Thanks for another sober day. it wasn't. I didn't stand a chance.
I like your approach to it. Is alcohol is not the issue because we do the things we're supposed to do. And if I get up and I'm spiritually fit and I do the things I'm supposed to do every day, then alcohol is not going to be a fear. It's already been promised to me that's that's part of the process. And I like the way you said that. The higher power can take care of that. That's his area, because I'm not big enough. Leave it to me and I get drunk. So
absolutely.
So it takes that control, and my job is just to not drink, to stay spiritually fit, and when I do that, good things happen. So
yeah, you know what? Get up and make the bed. That whole thing. Start the train off. Start the train off right, and. I take care of that kind of stuff. The whole part of that, and I have found for me that as I've gone through this journey, that as long as I'm doing the right things, I feel like Pac-Man sometimes. These little good things happen.
Yeah.
These little good tablets get put out in front of me, and the journey, and there's some bumps, but the journey is sweet because you keep having these things tossed your way that tell you you're on the right track.
Sure.
And for instance, I wrote down a couple of stories I was going to tell you guys that just kind of make it like that for me. I remember I was actually on a trip with my family. I was like 6 months sober, and I was like, I was living the program, and I was like that guy, that bushy tailed guy that wouldn't shut up,
Yeah.
And
we all know him.
We all know him because we all are him.
Oh my God.
Not me.
Well, I was going to go to a meeting. I found an English speaking meeting. I was in France, and I don't speak French. And I was walking around, and I got the map, and I found where the building is, and I couldn't get into the building, and I didn't know what to do, and I don't speak the language, and so I had my big book with me, and I opened it up, and I just happened to open up and start reading about relapse, and I'm like, okay, blah blah, and then there's an open window on the second story, and I hear all these people laughing. And I'm all, that's a meeting up there.
Yeah.
That's a meeting. And I waited until they got out. They came out the front door, and the guy saw me holding my book, and he goes, were you here trying to get into the meeting? He's like, yeah, we didn't have the door unlocked. Sorry. Because I was some kind of city building or whatever. And he goes, there's a good meeting tomorrow. Go to this and we'll see you there. And I'm like, I'll be there. But, I have found if you kind of do the right things, you get rewarded with more of, like, someone pats you on the head and says, you're doing the right thing. Just keep going. The trail is there. It leads you more than you have to follow it on your own. It is there's those little energy tablets that come at you, and that's nice to know when you're doing it right, because it's a scary thing, man. I was 55 when I got sober, and I thought, I'm not going to make 56.
Yeah.
I remember that feeling.
I do. Not being 55.
I just felt I wasn't going to make it through it.
I remember when Jill was 55. That was a good year.
As she beats him mercilessly,
Oh my God.
So Lee, we've been listening to you talk for roughly 20 minutes. We've heard a lot of your story, and I can tell you in 20 minutes, you almost, even down to the solar cane, told my story. Really? Almost in duplicate, from working in an industry where there's alcohol to the company telling you that they have a program. All of that it's kind of really, really, you stay around long enough, somebody's going to tell your story. That's just how it
Absolutely.
is. And there's just so many parts of our program that intersect, or parts of our recovery story that intersect. It's almost scary.
Yeah. No doubt.
I love when you talk about your relationship with your son.
Oh yeah.
That's you guys went driving together, because my son and I he goes to school in the South. He goes to school at Auburn, but we're super tight, and I love hearing those stories when I listen to you guys. Absolutely.
Auburn, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I told him
he's living the good life.
We're trying to get him over to LSU, but I think he's stuck there. So
Hey, look, tell him to stay at Auburn. I used to live about 35, 40 minutes south of LSU, and I wouldn't wish that traffic on anybody. I live in Dallas, Texas now, and I'm going to tell you the traffic is worse by LSU College than it is in Dallas.
Really?
Absolutely.
I believe it.
Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Yeah,
man.
It is.
But that is the truth, though. That is really. people talk a lot about trying to find the differences, but really, it's so remarkable about the coincidences of things that intersect in this journey with each other.
Yeah.
Have you have part of your story kind of reminds me of Step Brothers, the movie where they go to Catalina wine mixer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see these guys and they take this wine and they roll it around in a glass and then they take a sip of it, then they spit it out.
Yep.
Like, what the hell's wrong with them?
Oh yeah.
It's hard.
Well, it is very funny because that is a big part of it. And I know some people in the program who are sober and they do that still. And they ask me if I do, and I say absolutely not. And I said I don't judge them for that. That if you can stay sober and do that, good for you. But for me, man, I don't even. I actually had a funny thing where I was sitting next to another rep from one of our company, and we were at a dinner, and I accidentally grabbed her glass. And people talk about the hot stove reaction. And I started to put her glass to my mouth, not realizing what it was. And as soon as it hit my lips, I knew what it was. And I spit it out on the table right in front of all these people. And they're all, what's wrong? What's wrong? I'm like, oh, nothing. And everybody pretty much knows I'm the sober guy in the industry, right? So I just kind of wiped everything up and kept going. But I was driving home kind of doing the replay in my head. And I'm like, wow, that really does happen. Like people talk about having that reaction to it. But I just did not want to have it. There wasn't any part of me that bargained with it or, was worried about it afterwards. Or like, now am I going to be, am I redoing my sober date or whatever? Because, it's just like, I didn't want anything to do with it. And and that was actually ended up what it could have been a bad situation. It became one of my because I think I was about 3 years sober when that happened, and it was just kind of, you got this covered. You're going to be okay,
Sure.
So about probably 2 weeks after my 11 year, the waitress brought me the wrong drink at a restaurant. And the drink she bought me had alcohol in it. And didn't think about it, started drinking, and I realized it was sweet and what I had ordered was not. And I immediately, I had all those thoughts rush through my head. Oh my gosh, what if I get home and start craving alcohol?
You're right.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was sweating it, and I was 11 years sober, and I was sitting here thinking, and I was at dinner with 2 fellow members of Alcoholics Anonymous, and and one of them actually has I think now he's going on about 28, 29 years. Of course, I ran it by him with all his seniority that he had. I was like, hey, do I? And he was like, no, man, you had no intention.
Yeah.
And, it was like, that's a bummer if you go 11 years and then you accidentally,
Oh, gosh.
But it's almost like that is lumped into that spiritually fit part too. God's watching out for us as we go through our day and those type things too. You go home, oops, I didn't mean to do that. It was no intent to it. Your heart was in the right place, and you didn't get overcome with I'm going to drink 3 bottles of Jack tonight because I had that sip of wine. You don't have that craving type thing, and I think that goes with that too. We have some religious. Mike may remember, Jill. We had some people in religious ceremonies that said they still do a little bit of
Holy
wine.
Sacrament.
And they just pray about it, and then they still do it. They're good to go, and it's no issues, and it's part of their religion. I think that's great. I think that's the same thing.
Man.
It's
hey, absolutely. Hey, if it works for you,
yeah.
I'm not the grand poobah of sobriety.
Me
so it's like, if it works for somebody else, who am I to question it? It's just like if it works and you're not wrecking your life and you're good to other people, and have at it. That's.
And I know y'all keep it classy out there with the wine, but I was always, nobody liked the boxes of wine that I would bring, to the wine tasting. So
my problem was it was hard to drive down the road and drink a box of wine.
It is. Yeah.
Gotta hold that sucker up. Get that long straw
I'm like,
going.
Look, Mom, no hands.
Put a water hose in that little.
Y'all think he's joking, but I have drank straight out of the box. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Were you guys wine drinkers?
I drank a box of that crap on the way to Panama City in high school in the back of a Jeep, and threw up, drank the box halfway, the second half threw up out of the Jeep all the way along the coast.
It's like leaving crumbs on your way home.
Yeah.
June 20th, 2011, the day before my sobriety date, I drank an entire box of Chardonnay and a fifth of vodka.
Jesus.
It's a good combo.
That's been serious.
Yeah.
That I used to be. There's a hotel when you guys see LA on TV and stuff. They always show those 5 mirrored. It's the Bonaventure in LA, but it's those 5 mirrored cylinders. It's been in all the movies. I used to stay there a lot. And that was my favorite place to stay. They have a bar there, and I used to that was where I'd go down when I'd go to meetings in LA. I'd stay there, and I knew the bartenders, and they knew me. And I hadn't been there for a couple years because I stopped traveling on the train, obviously, and I stopped staying down just to eliminate any, potential. I was still learning how to be sober and live sober. And I went there one night, and the guy, as I was walking up, the guy started to pour Tito's in a tall glass. He goes, "Oh, Mr. Moore, Tito's." And he started pouring it, and I'm like, "Not anymore." And you know what? You know what the best part was? He looked at me, and he went, "Good." And not too often a bartender's gonna look at you that you used to tip well and very well and look at me and go, "Good." He was like, "I'm glad to see you looking healthy." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm different path, man." But he remembered me, and I was like, "Man, if a bartender knows you by your first name or last name, you've been there too much."
He remembers you.
Or you have a picture of you behind the bar.
Got my own stool. Yeah.
Have you have you ever been to the Canyon Club in Laguna Beach?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah.
The last person we interviewed via this new process we're doing, she's going to LA for a
family deal.
It's a marathon. She's going to run a marathon on her recovery date, and I asked her, told her about the Canyon Club there in Laguna Beach. So a lot of good stories, a lot of good speakers you hear come out of there. Yes,
that is funny. There's all these little hubs around where people are kind of legendary. And for the process, I see a bunch of guys that do a bike ride every week that do the Peninsula Club down in Channel Islands. They used to come up on Saturday to Ojai. I haven't seen them in a while, but I still see them on rides sometimes. I'm like, "You guys," and they're like, "You from Ojai?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's me, man."
So is the meetings down there like in the LA area? I imagine there's a lot of people at those. I mean, is it attendance wise? I mean, we'll have 25 people, 30 people is pretty good meeting average here where we go. Is that been your experience? Is it a lot of?
Yeah, I've only been to a few meetings down in LA. 'Cause, I'm in a little town of 8,000 people.
Right.
So a big meeting here at our little town is, 25 people. Although we get a lot of movie stars, which is kind of funny. Like you'll be in there, you're like, "Oh, wait a minute,"
Yeah.
And because it's a kind of a quiet little enclave of artists and stuff. But you go down to meetings in LA, and something, it'll be like a hall. You're talking hundreds of people, and you always hear. I like the camaraderie of things like that, and I like the feeling of like we're all in this together. But I also like one of the things I really liked was being almost like you get in a class of people that kind of come in at the same time, and you kind of grow together.
Yeah.
You come staggering in, and you kind of watch each other, and you kind of grow together, and you kind of look at each other once in a while and go, "Yeah, look at us, man. We can do this," and you kind of move up and take more responsibilities in the club and all those things. I think that works better for what I like the intimacy of it because I need that kind of feedback, where some people like the anonymity of being in a big meeting where they don't have to talk and whatever. I kind of like the swirl of the smaller meetings myself.
You're right outside of Oxnard?
Yeah, we're inland from Oxnard, up in the mountains. It's just like I said. Great place to raise kids, but it is a small, it's small and intimate here. So you kind of know everybody after a while.
Yeah, y'all got a pretty good clubhouse there, like a the facility.
It's good. It's good. It fell apart a little bit during COVID.
Yeah, we've seen that a lot.
But yeah, that was tough. A lot of people out here were really nervous about getting back into the meetings.
Yeah,
and getting back in person. And I was all about getting back, and I need that. One of the reasons I'm still able to function in my business is I'm a relationship guy. I'm a relationship salesman. I'm not slick. I'm not real smart, so I can't fool anybody. It's like I have to get with somebody, and I have to kind of see them eyeball to eyeball. My boss always says it's a belly to belly business.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like that about recovery. I can't really do I didn't feel the comfort from Zoom. I really felt like when I see you and I shake your hand after the meeting and I feel like we're all in this together, we're all at that table and we're talking, and sometimes it's ugly, sometimes it's great, sometimes it's teary, whatever it is, you come back with an experience and you're glad you were part of it. I'd never gone to a meeting and been like, why was I in there? That was a waste of time.
Yeah.
That just doesn't happen.
And
You always get something from it.
We've been in there long enough too. What I love is you hear people come in, and if you stick with it and you stick in that group, you hear the ups and downs, like you said, and you hear it when people are going through it, and it may be a month or two, it may be a year, and they're sharing about that, or they're getting that stuff out, and then things get better, and it kind of picks up, and you start to hear them laugh, and they get better, and they're joking, and that's a beautiful thing, to watch that ebb and flow of life with people, because we all have it. And it's just a good reminder to go, hey, things are okay. This is life. Everybody goes through downs.
That's so true. That's so, and I think a big part of, for my sobriety, before I got sober, if you asked me how I was doing, I would tell you exactly how I'm doing at this minute. And it's either the best or it's the worst. Mm-hmm. And I was like a Richter scale going up and down,
Sure.
It was never, I was like just, da back and forth. And now, I kind of like that. I kind of like that little kind of, I'm not going to say a flat line, but I just like that little kind of cruising along, cruise control, nothing too big, nothing too bad, I was thinking about that the other morning. I was on a ride. It was a really pretty morning. I'm riding along, and it was quiet. It was kind of warming up nice. And I'm riding along on my bike, and I'm pedaling. The highway was empty. And I went, this is really nice. And then I thought, before I got sober, this would be the best day ever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it had to either be the best or the worst. And I was just sat in that moment. I'm like, this is really nice. Okay, that's good. And so I'm gonna keep riding now. And that was really a learned thing for me, because that volatility, I couldn't last long with that kind of volatility in my life and still be sober, because just reacting to everything with such passion and sometimes craziness, that chaos that comes from that kind of attitude did not bode well for my sobriety. I just kind of have learned to be a little take it as it comes kind of a guy,
Yeah.
And that same bike ride, you can go on the next day and it's a thunderstorm and lightning's everywhere. And
Matt's still trying to figure out what a Richter scale is.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's a really good point. But that is the flip side of that. When things are bad, it's like, okay, I'm just going to keep paddling. I'm just going to keep pedaling for me, but you're just going to keep going along. It's like you guys like to fish a lot,
Yeah,
if you
sure.
fish, right? And it's terrible and you don't catch anything. Is that the worst fishing day ever?
No, we were fishing, man.
You got to go fish. Yeah, exactly. And then you move on to the next, and you probably have a better time, a better catch next time. You'll get more fish. I just think that is something I have learned and taken away from the program, been a life lesson. And I was, like I said, I didn't get sober till I was 55. So you can imagine what I was like for 55 years. I was the best guy in the world to be around, or the worst guy in the world to be around.
Kind of wound up or not wound up.
Exactly, man.
My sponsor early on, he still does it, but early on I would be frustrated or something when, that extreme thing of everything's great and I'm floating along on this cloud, or it's all a disaster and we've got, a dumpster fire and something would go bad and he would listen to it and I'm, explaining whatever it was that was so bad, and he would go, well, did you learn it? What'd you learn? And I go, don't do that again, or something, smart ass, Then I look at that now and I go, what'd I learn here? Good or bad? What'd I learn? And I don't look at it. My attitude is different on things now, because I go, oh, I was learning not to do that. So it's not a bad or good feeling necessarily on things anymore. It's just kind of, okay, I learned something there and I'm not going to do that again. And, you take that extremes that we're so used to away from things.
Well, the practical application of AA, and I don't know, Jill, we have never really had this conversation, but it has a lot of practical applications. And one of those for me was, it taught me that, yes, life is going to put obstacles in your path. And what you do is, or me anyway, I can just, okay, that's just an obstacle. That doesn't mean my path has to stop right here. I just have to go, actually before I would go under it or over it or around it, and now I just have to go through it.
Yeah, it's taught me a lot about perseverance, which I was an all or nothing. If I can't have it all, then screw it. And that's, a huge principle that is, been part of my recovery and it's nice because it's not good, it's not bad, but I'm just going to go through it and I'm going to be okay.
And
nailed it, Jill. Yep.
And two, look at an obstacle like Mike said, go around it, through it, whatever. What I've started to learn is I don't look at the obstacle as a bad thing when I see it coming up, because I go, is my higher power trying to steer me in a different direction, and I'm not listening? So this is blocking what I was supposed to be doing. Because I've had that experience. I've been in there long enough to go, oh, I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and you can see it, and you're like, I see what you're doing, God.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm an idiot. Like,
I know why this is happening.
I was going to, run my head into the wall 8 million times in a row and kick the wall out. And that's where being able to look at things as not always good and bad with the quotation marks.
It just is.
It's just it just is. And we'll see.
Well, here's a good one for you. Here's a good one for you. This is another part of that whole principle. Is the other night, I've been married 24 years, right? And I was discussing something that we had family in and all that. You know how that gets. And my wife said, "What do you think about this? You're not saying much." And I thought, well, there's a nice thing to say to me. I think I really appreciate you saying that. And I was like, because before I was more than happy to offer the world my opinion because I knew everything. And she's like, "You're not saying much. What do you want to give some input here on this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be happy to, but I just want to make sure that, I'm hearing what you're saying." And I'm like, who am I? Who am I?
You just said that. Man, I'm right there with you.
Same here. I mean, especially when it comes to like reacting, like you were saying, I used to be a horrible reactor filled with anger, and I would let anybody know what I felt they needed to know. And, and it got me in trouble and arrested and things like that. So just knowing that I don't have to be a part of any of that anymore. Like, I have no need to express my bullshit, in a sense, or act like a fool or whatever. Like, I can just hear it and just be like, oh, okay.
Yeah. The piece of being okay inside enough to go, this doesn't need a reaction.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing with us too, is just, it is the extremes, even with behaviors with other people. And we go, oh, this person hates me. Well, I'm losing in quotation marks on this deal. I better get back at them, or I better correct this, and it's nice to just go, well, they think what they think. It's not my problem.
I don't go home very much anymore in the evening or at night and think about any of my interactions I've had with another person.
That's good.
It's just kind of, there just wasn't any, if they said something I don't like, that doesn't mean I don't have to say something. They just...
Right.
You don't need to react. Exactly.
Or internalize it, which a lot of people end up doing, and just, lose sleep and think about all the things they could have said now.
But where I've really
Jill,
grown...
that's right.
Where I've really...
That's right, Jill.
I've grown somewhere is where someone says something and I say, they may be right.
Oh.
They might actually be right.
Put that ego to the side, huh?
I have to put that in a box, and when I get home, I get to think about that. Go, hey, if they said something, I need to figure out what behavior that I kind of portrayed to make them feel like that. So, and I use that to to help me,
right, to learn something about yourself.
If we're offended by it, like if somebody tells me something and I go, ugh, I don't want to hear that. That hurt my feelings. That's probably what I needed to hear. Like the truth. The truth.
Was telling you maybe you need to work on something.
But I didn't listen to that stuff in the past. I went, oh, they're crazy.
Screw
I'm not
them.
listening to
And
that
then you
stuff.
have a resentment, don't you?
And now I can walk away and go, you know what? I didn't like hearing that. My little feelings may have got hurt for a minute, but I can actually have even gone up to a few people and went, man, thanks for saying that. Like I didn't look at it that way, or my own stuff wouldn't let me look at it that way. And what do they say? The truth hurts. Sometimes the truth hurts. I figured out in here with this group of people that they all just want me to get better. And so they don't mind telling me, hey man, you're running into a dead end here. Let's move a different way. And it took me a long time to get that. And I went, oh, these people actually care. They truly care enough to hurt my feelings a little bit or whatever it might be. That's a pretty cool thing. cool place to be. So
that truth is a great stabilizer, you know?
Well, I interview a lot of people on a pretty regular basis, and job interview, and one of the questions I ask is, tell us about a time when you've had constructive criticism given to you and you've used it to make yourself better. And, and of course the interviewee answers that question however they feel. And I'm thinking to myself, if someone was asking me that, what would I say? Because I can think about times where, ex-wife said something and then, I'm throwing stuff like a fit or screaming or pointing my finger and you don't know me and all. And of course now I'm a little older. I'm a lot older than back then. And, but now I could come up with some pretty good scenarios, especially in Alcoholics Anonymous, because one of my best resources ever has been a sponsor just looking at me and saying, "You're wrong. You are just wrong." And you think, well, he says I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. Had to wait for 10 people.
They have that street cred. They have that. I've been doing this a lot longer than you, and that is a sign of growth. I always thought that when someone decides they can listen because they've been beat up enough in their life, that maybe somebody has a better idea about this than I do.
Yep.
Absolutely. And that humility is, I wanted to make sure I said this at some point today, that when I used to go to meetings and someone would say, my name's Joe and I'm, he's been 30 years, whatever his, sobriety date. And they'd say, and I'm a grateful alcoholic. I'd be like, screw you.
Yeah.
Grateful alcoholic.
I remember those days.
Yes, I do.
I'd be like, I just want to get at the table and just beat that guy like a drum, right? And now I feel it every morning I wake up and I'm like, man, this is the best thing that ever happened to me. Yeah. And I mean it. It is the best thing that ever happened to me because I got this golden ticket of learning about myself and being a better person and, and overcoming something that could have killed me, but also just knowing how to live on a higher plane. I'm grateful for it every day. Absolutely.
Yeah, you know what? You hit the nail on the head with that. And most common folk out there that don't have a drinking problem, that are in, just regular old life, 9 to 5 day, they don't have a program where they take a look at themselves. They just, for some reason, of course, they don't have a drinking problem, but a lot of folks don't do that self-reflecting or talk about the stuff that we talk about here and on the show, and they don't have that. To me, that is a pretty cool thing to be able to have.
It's a postgraduate class in living your life.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
Or for some of us, elementary. Right? I mean,
oh, Jill, yes.
In all seriousness, the program of Alcoholics Anonymous has really taught me how to live and my parents tried. They did a really good job of trying. They gave me everything I needed growing up. I didn't grow up in a bad home. I grew up in a really good home. And I missed it. I missed those lessons. Preachers tried, teachers tried, father-in-laws tried, even my kids when they were little tried. And I missed all of those things. And I come into the room of Alcoholics Anonymous and I just have this gentle old man sitting across from me every day teaching me how to live one day at a time.
Sobriety's great. And don't get me wrong, I am incredibly grateful to be sober. But that other part that we've all been talking about for the past 5 minutes is learning about me and learning how to deal with life on life's terms and, working on everything that I was using to keep me down. Just everything from emotions to thoughts to behaviors, all of it. I got to change all of that. And that's just kind of like the icing on the cake for me because that was the last thing I thought we would do. I thought it was you just stop drinking, using, whatever, and then that was a wrap. I had no idea it was so much bigger than that. And I'm grateful for that.
That was worth the wait. That was worth the wait. I'm glad you brought that back. That was perfect. Perfectly put.
I feel like I am a somewhat mature woman now, and I'm emotionally available. I know myself. I love myself, and I know me. And I didn't for so long, and I didn't there were just so many things I didn't know how to do.
You know, and we were talking about earlier too about people telling us things and them and it hurting our feelings and them being right about it and things like that. And I'll tell you another one that I've learned that's a cool part of sobriety is when we're right about something. And there's that volleyball that we had, or that tennis match in life. I had an ex-wife, okay? She hits one over to me, and I'm going to hit one back because you said this, and I'm going to say this. And I learned that it's okay to be right or to know, hey, I'm right in this situation. It doesn't mean that I have to fire off a blast, counter the attack type thing. I can just let that go. I don't have to go out and show the world that I'm right or be... You know what I mean?
Restraint.
Restraint and
communication. I mean, like,
sure. And I don't have that thing, whatever that thing was in the past, that I'm going to win this. Yeah, I'm going to win this.
I need to be right.
Well, I fight that every day. That's something
right.
We all fight, I think. But I don't have to. I don't have to have the win, and I don't have to feel like I'm the winner of this deal every time. And I can just quietly go, "Hey, I'm out on this. It's okay." Maybe it's a misunderstanding.
It's nice because all of a sudden, like, I mean, I don't care.
That translates to peace.
There you go.
You can be right all you want. I don't care. I just don't.
You know, I think there's that part of us. And there's this guy, Jimmy, he used to go to meetings. He had the great way of putting things. And he was a construction guy. And he was talking about he was at a job site one day. And he was running this job site. And the big boss was coming. And it was a beautiful day. It was in Santa Barbara, which is one of the most beautiful places in the world. And he had everything set, and the job site was perfect. And then the boss is going to come in here, and he's going to be like, wow, they don't make him like Jimmy anymore. And he said the boss showed up, looked around, and went, yeah, all right, see you guys. And Jimmy was like, what the hell was that? And he said he was so righteously indignant. And I thought, there was that part of me that craved that for so long. And he just put it so perfectly that they don't make him like Jimmy anymore. And whenever I find myself looking for that attaboy or looking for some kind of like, just something that makes me feel like I'm that special guy, which I'm just a drunk out here trying to get through life, I always go, they don't make them like Lee anymore. I literally say that out loud to myself, because I'm just a dude.
Yeah. We're just a little speck out here with all the other specks, So
yeah, just trying to do the best we can.
That's it.
Well, Lee, how is life today? What's it like now?
You know what? It's darn good. It is. I love what I do. I look forward to every day. I'm not on a mission to survive every day. I'm on a mission to experience whatever I experience. I'm trying to learn a little bit more every day, try to get better at what I do. And, and I sleep. I've always been a horrible sleeper. And it's so funny. I have a Garmin bike computer that I use, but I also have the watch, and I have the app and all that stuff, and I track all my biometrics. And I was a horrible sleeper until I got sober. And my wife she teases me now because she says, I have never seen anybody can sleep as soundly as you. I was going over my last year of sleeping yesterday on my Garmin, and I sleep like a rock. Wow. I mean, it is so just the ability to get good sleep after 55 years of being the guy that's up and down every night. I put my head on the pillow, have my little piece I say to God, and then that's it. I wake up in the morning and make the bed and, get ready to do it again. And that's a gift.
That is a gift.
Yeah. This whole thing's a gift. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lee, you're awesome, man. Thank you for coming on here. This is a new area for us we're venturing out into, and it's just been outstanding. We're having fun with it.
Oh my God, you guys. I love the show. Whenever I always text Matt whenever I'm going to go on a long drive. I'm like, I'm going to listen to you guys today. Awesome. And man, I feel like I know you guys. It's so fun to be a part of it. Thanks for having me on.
And Lee, this episode will air on the 22nd of December, just FYI.
22nd December. That's awesome.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll have give me a little time to do some edits and, add in some stuff. And we have a holiday episode that'll air on the 15th. So, we want to get the holiday in before the Christmas/New Year's. So we want to get that in, but this will be, we got one coming out tomorrow, then we got one coming out the next week, and then the 22nd is going to be yours.
Cool.
Dude, that is exciting. I'm so excited, you guys. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this.
Welcome.
As much as everybody fusses about social media and all the bad stuff that's out there, it is kind of cool that we can all just talk in different areas and through recovery. It's a great community online,
Yep. And you know what? And yes, the commonality we share, Matt, you know, the minute I start going back and forth with you, I'm like, this is a real dude. You know, this is my kind of guy. You know, because you know, because I don't know if the other two of you have seen, like, you know, my stuff I do, I get a lot of people that approach me that are, you know, nefarious or whatever, just because it's all like, you know, lifting weights and I'm half naked half the time and all that. It's like, so I get my daughter says I'm cringy, but then, you know, whatever. But, you know, I'm just doing me. There's actually a guy named Brad Womack that I discovered that he's not a sober guy, but he was on a sober podcast. And he's just like this really down to earth guy. And he's in his 50s. And he's like, I just like putting it out there because I want to show that guys my age can do this stuff. And for me, it's a real similar kind of thing, but it's my way of checking in with the world and being like, I'm out here grinding, you know, I'm out here joyfully doing my thing. You know?
It is an extension to me of meetings and being in that community of AA, and not even AA, but recovery community of, I can pick up my phone and sit on a tractor somewhere and I can listen to a podcast about somebody in New York or somewhere that's doing the same things I'm doing, and they're just like me. And
so true.
That's awesome. You know, I can do it anywhere I'm at.
Fellowshipping in a totally different way.
Sure.
Exactly. And I really think you guys are on to something successful. You guys have a thing.
Thank you.
You know, you really do. I just think it's, I love listening to you. And I think you guys have a thing. I really do, because you're doing a little bit differently than everybody else. And I like the banter, and I like how you all know each other. And I like the regional aspect of it too. And I think you guys are going to be really successful. I really do.
Well, thank you for coming on, and I'll shoot you some information when this thing's getting ready to come out, and we'll go from there.
I'm sure we'll be in touch. I think got some friends here on this phone call. I really appreciate you guys.
Yes, sir.
All right, take care.
Thank you, Lee.
Have a good one, you guys.
Too,
bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye. We have been at Rule 62 Studios in Bossier City, Louisiana, and we have been the Grouch and the Brainstorm.